XML language is more interactive than HTML, but where HTML we are concentrating on how to present the data in a web page. Whenever the user keeps move his cursor maybe on the heading part of it, so the color of the heading keeps changing. That is dynamic HTML. The process of creating and embedding scripts in a web page is known as web scripting. Dear students, welcome to CS classes. I am Ravi Kumar KR, lecturer in computer science, Vidhyaashram PU College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Students, let us start our session today with the concept XML, DHTML and web scripting. Here we are going to learn the definitions and features of these three concepts. Now let us see what is XML. XML is an extended markup language for documents containing structured information. Now you know what is HTML. So XML is next version of HTML. Nowadays we are using XML in the place of HTML. So XML is a language. Full form is extended markup language for web designing applications. Now it is a language for documents containing structured information. And this XML language is more structured as compared to HTML language. We are going to see in next slides. Now, structured information contains both content. It may be of words or picture, etc. and some indication of what role that content plays. So this is additional feature of XML language where the content itself has some indications of the what role that content plays. So this is additional feature of XML language. Next, XML is a text-based markup language that is fast, becoming the standard for data interchange on the web. So this is nowadays, it is a standard language for web applications. Now let us see the difference between HTML and XML language. So here XML is extended markup language and this is hypertext markup language. Now that is the first full form of XML as well as HTML. Now in XML it focuses on transfer of data and exchange of data, but it is in HTML it is presentation of data, and that is the main difference between these two. XML language is more interactive than HTML, but where HTML we are concentrating on how to present the data in a web page. Now it is more structured and it is less structured. It is more flexible, it is not flexible, and it is content driven, it is format driven. What is the meaning of content driven? Here we are concentrating on the content, and again content can play its own role. That is what we are concentrating on this, and here it is only format driven. So we are going to display the content in a particular format. Next, case sensitive and not case sensitive language, and strict for closing tags, and here not. And this is, you might have come across some example in HTML. While writing code for HTML, even if you forget to close any of the closed tag, it may work for you, but it is strict with respect to closing tags. So this is the meaning of more structured as compared to HTML. Next is not predefined and it is predefined. So these are the main differences between two languages, HTML and XML. XML is the advanced version of HTML language. Nowadays we are using XML as a standard language for web designing applications. Now let us look into another part of HTML, that is DHTML. It stands for Dynamic HTML. Dynamic Hypertext Markup Language. So dynamic is the opposite of static. The static, the meaning of the word static is it remains same, and the word dynamic, the meaning is it keeps changing. So here this is what, with respect to web page, we are going to talk about what is dynamic HTML or DHTML. So DHTML refers to web content that changes each time it is viewed. See, this is one point of it. For example, the same URL could result in a different page depending on any number of parameters such as geographic location of the reader, time of the day, previous page viewed by the reader, and profile of the reader. Students, you might have come across some examples. See, whenever you visit some of the websites, if you work on the website, when you keep working on or browsing through websites, some of the contents may change. What is the meaning of that? See here, whenever the geographic location of the reader, for example, geographic location of the reader. Suppose if you visit one of the website at one particular location and the design part of the web page is different, and if you visit the same website or the same web page on different location, then it may changes the design part of it, or maybe its color, font. There are chances of changing. That is the meaning of dynamic. Dynamic HTML means the content, the design part of it, it may change according to the geographic location of the reader. Second means time of the day. The same thing here. See, whenever you are going to open one of the website at particular time, then same page if you visit on some other time, then it looks different. That is the meaning of this. Time of the day, previous pages viewed by the reader, and profile of the reader. All these are examples for dynamic HTML or DHTML. So the word dynamic means it is not constant, not static, it keeps changing. So this is we can observe in any of the websites. Now look at another example. Simple example of dynamic HTML capabilities include having the color of the text heading change when a user pauses a mouse over it and allowing a user to drag and drop an image to another place on the same web page. This is what we have seen in our previous slide. So whenever the user keeps move his cursor, maybe on the heading part of it, so the color of the heading keeps changing. That is dynamic HTML. Example for DHTML. And another option here is drag and drop option. So within that particular web page, so any of the image contents can be moved from one location to another location. That is another part of it. Now, it refers to new HTML extension that will enable a web page to react to user input without sending request to the web server. This is another point for DHTML. What's the meaning of this? Here, as you know that here web browser is a client, and any application, it should work with the web server. But in DHTML web page, here, web page to react the user input without sending request to the web server. Here, for any of the applications, any of the actions taken within a web page, for that, the particular web browser need not to contact or need not to connect to the server for execution. That is the meaning of this point here. So these are the points for DHTML. Next point is dynamic HTML is a collective term for a combination of hypertext markup language and options that can make a web pages more animated and interactive than HTML web page. So this is one of the important point for DHTML. Here it is more interactive than HTML and it is more animated than HTML. So DHTML, it gives us more options and more animated pictures, and as well as it's more interactive. Next one is dynamic HTML can allow web documents to look and act like a desktop applications or multimedia product, another feature of DHTML. Now let us see what are all the features of this DHTML. The concepts and features in DHTML are an object-oriented view of a web page and its elements. So this is what's the meaning of an object. Here, all the contents in a web page will act as individual object. It may be for heading, subheading, maybe left side of the web layout, right side, any of the content in any part of a web page, it will act as an independent object. That is an independent program. That is the concept of object-oriented view of an object or of an elements. Next one is cascading style of shades and layering of content. Next one is programming that can address all or most page of element. So here it is going to address individual objects of each and every content inside a web page. It is a dynamic font. Now let us see the definitions of all these things. What is the meaning of object-oriented view of elements? Here, each page element, division or a section or heading, it can be anything, is viewed as an object. As I told you just now, all the content in the web page can be viewed as an object. It is an independent program, independent element. So there won't be any connectivity from one element to another element. For example, here headings and paragraph, image, everything will be viewed as an object, independent program, independent coding for that. Next one is another example. Each heading on a web page can be named, given attributes of text style and color, and addressed by a name in a small program or script included on the page. Another feature of the DHTML is we can include a script for a particular object in a web page or particular element in a web page. Next, not only can element variations change text wording or color, but everything contained within a heading object can be replaced with new content that includes different or additional HTML as well as different text. So what is the meaning of this? Here, within a particular object, for example, heading, here user has an option of changing the content of the heading, and it was not there with HTML language. This is additional feature of DHTML. Next, although JavaScript, Java Applet and ActiveX web pages, dynamic HTML implies an increased amount of programming in web pages, since more elements of a web page can be addressed by a program. Meaning of the sentence is each element or each object can be programmed separately, or it is a separate coding for each and every element or a object in a web page. A feature called dynamic fonts web page. So what is the meaning of dynamic font here? Generally, you might have come across some of the applications where some of the fonts may not support by the web browser, or some of the style, some of the design part of it, and particular design, particular font, particular style, all this may not support by all of the web browsers. But DHTML, it provides an option for dynamic fonts. Here it supports different types of almost all fonts in the web page. That is the meaning of this sentence. Next one is quickly change the appearance and formatting of elements without adding, removing elements, easier, and support layering. So what here another feature of DHTML is here user can change the appearance and formatting of the elements. Means any content of in any part of the web layout or web page, it can be changed easily, or he can adding and removing of elements is easier as compared to HTML. See, these are all different points with respect to DHTML. Now let us move on to next slide. This is web scripting. So what is web scripting? The process of creating and embedding scripts in a web page is known as web scripting. In other words, a script or a computer script is a list of commands that are embedded in a web page normally and are interrupted and executed by certain programming or scripting engine. So another concept is web scripting. What is web scripting? Here you might have come across some examples in websites. See, in some of the websites, there are some additional programs are embedded within the web page, and it is nothing but a separate independent program, and it will be executed for example, if you click on certain particular icon or particular program, particular button, it will be executed. So what is web scripting? Here it is. Web scripting is nothing but is a computer script. It is nothing but a coding, or it is a programming that are included within a web page. That is web scripting. Scripts may be written for a variety of purposes, such as for automating process on a local computer or generate web pages on the web. So here web scripting is nothing but it is web scripts can be written for varieties of applications within a web page. For example, placing an order on the web page. Now, you might be familiar with different online shopping. There you are going to place order for different items. That is an example for this scripting or web scripting. So that is an application within the website where the user can make use of it. That is an example for web scripting. Now the programming language in which scripts are written are called scripting languages. So it is scripting languages are used to write web scripts within a web page. Now they are here JavaScript, VB ASP, PHP, Perl and JSP. These are all scripting languages. Through this we can write web scripting for websites. Now let us move on to next slide. Client-side scripts. Here in web scripting there are two types of web scripting. One is client-side script, one more is server-side script. So now at this stage you know what is a server, what is a client. So web server is an application, it is a place where all the resources are available, and web browser is a client. Web browser is a client software. I mean all the applications are executed through the web server or by sending a request to the web server, or some of the applications are executed through web browser, that is a client. So here web server and web client. Here web browser is a web client software. Now let us see the definition of client-side scripts. Here the client-side scripts are downloaded at the client end and then interrupted and executed by the browser. So here one of the scripting is client side. Here in this example the user can download the client end applications within the browser or inside within the web client software. He can download some of the web applications. Next, client-side scripting is used when the client-side interaction is used, and whenever the interaction takes place and it need not to connect to the server or it need not to be executed through the server or web server. So those type of scripting are used in client-side scripts. Then it runs on client device. So web client or it's a web browser, it will be generally in a user system or the client side. So almost all the applications are executed within the client device or within the client system. Now the processing at the user's computer, and because of client-side scripts, all the processing or all the applications are executed at the user's computer. Let us move on to next slide. Here some samples uses of the client-side scripting may be to get data from the user screen or the browser. It is you are entering a data, any of the applications through website. That is an example for this. Online games, here online games, then customizing the display of page in browsers without reloading the page. Another example for this, creating an account, email, and online transactions. All these are examples for client-side script where all these operations or processing takes place at the user system or at the client's device. Now let us move on to one more slide. Here server-side scripts. Here server-side scripting enables the completion or carrying out the task at the server and then the sending the result to the client end. So there is a difference between client-side scripts and server-side script. Here at the server-side script, all the operations or all the processing is carried out at the web server or the server computer, and after processing the result will be sent to a particular web client device or user's device. That is the meaning of server-side scripts. In server-side script, the server does all the work. So it does not matter which browser is being used at the client end, and server, all the task, all the processing will take place at the server. irrespective of the web browser or web client software. Now, server-side scripting is used when the information is sent to the server to be processed at the server end. When we are using this, and here there are some examples where where some of the processing or some of the tasks to be executed at the server level, there we are using server-side scripts. Some example uses of server-side scripts may be password protection. Now, whenever you are entering username and password, the password, it has to be authenticated at the server because your password are stored at the server computer. So it has to be compared. So password has to be processed at the server level. That is password protection. Then browser customization, form processing. What is form processing? For example, if you make use of any of the online form, application form and so on, it has to be processed. Means after you click submit button, it will be processed at the server side. So this is a form processing is an example for server side scripts. Next, building and displaying images created from a database and dynamically editing, changing or adding content to a web page. So this is all this processing or a task will be executed at the server level. Students, in this session we have learned about XML, difference between XML and HTML, DHTML and web scripting. Thank you very much.